still want. All right, so my name's Kyle. I run this company Equal Eats, where we specialize in dietary translation cards. We've been in operation for a few years now. It was definitely a tough go for us during the pandemic with nobody traveling and dining out, but happy to see so many people seeing the world again. We specialize in dietary cards in over 50 languages, 35 preset cards for people that have one specific avoidance. But we also have customized cards where you can choose from over 500 allergens, which is a lot. What sets us apart is our process. Accuracy is number one. We use professional translators, professional proofreaders, and then native speakers to review the final product. So it's really important to me that everything's soundproof because I have multiple food allergies myself. Most severe culprits are peanuts and tree nuts, which I've had ever since I was about 2 years old. I have some other allergens, egg, a few fish, some shellfish, and mustard, which are on a lesser scale according to my last allergy test, but still ones I avoid just the same. Before we get into meeting our panel, I just want to let you know what this is all about today. Really appreciate so many people signing up. This is a first for us to be providing this type of interactive round table. So what we're looking to do is provide you with tips, real life stories, and real life experiences from travelers who have been there, who have done that, who have conquered Europe, or maybe just one country, or maybe the whole continent. So we're gonna have a lot of first-hand stories coming at you. I am in Europe right now. I'm in the small country of Slovenia. So I've got a lot to share as well, but I know our panel is just bursting with great information. What we do not provide, we are not doctors. We are not giving you any diagnosis or medical advice today. That is not what this is about. And because we only deal with specific dietary restrictions ourselves, we can't really give you very specific advice to your unique situation. We have a lot of general information that can help you in broad ways. But if you need to see an allergist or a professional, we definitely recommend that for your own unique situation. Overall goal, providing knowledge, confidence, and inspiration to book that ticket and see one of the most beautiful continents in the world. All right, it's time to meet the stars of the show, Jenny, Mo, and Alexis. So Jenny has a really unique perspective. She is a chef and a dietitian, and probably our most recent visitor to Europe, who you can see just based on her background screen, had an encounter with Italy lately that she'll be talking about. We have Mo, who's been managing her own multiple food allergies since the early 90s, and she manages the Instagram account Nut Free in NYC. So it's a great resource for people going to New York. And then Alexis, who has a 3-year-old daughter with food allergies and quite a list that I'm sure she'll explain. So welcome to our panel. Thank you to the three of you for joining today. And to start off, I have a few questions that I would just like to break the ice with our panel. But at any time, please feel free to use the chat and you can submit your questions and we'll just start to monitor those questions. And the majority of the time today is going to be spent answering your questions. So I'll try to get things flowing here, but keep those questions coming and we'll make sure to get as many in as we can. So in order, Jenny, Mo, Alexis, what is your connection to dietary restrictions? Why are you here today?
So I personally have celiac disease and I was diagnosed at the age of 26. My husband has oral allergy syndrome. So that's always a fun little thing to deal with when you're traveling for sure. And I also have a random little allergy to bananas of all things. So yeah.
That's you're dealing with a lot of different perspectives there. The celiac allergy. Thank you. Mo, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Mo. I'm a therapist living in New York City. I've been managing my food allergies since I was about 6 months old. I was diagnosed with severe peanut and tree nut allergies at that time. So my mom had to help me figure out what works for me, but been carrying an EpiPen for a very long time now. I'm here because I feel like there's been so much anxiety in my life surrounding my food allergies. And I think there's been a lot of change over the years. And products that are available to us, and awareness and knowledge of food allergies. I really feel like I limited myself for a good portion of my life in terms of eating out and traveling. In the past decade or so, I've really broken through and found like a framework that works for me about how I can travel safely in a way that's comfortable for me and that my allergist and I've kind of made up together to fit my needs. So I'm just excited to be here and just share a little bit about what I've learned and some general things that have been helpful for me.
Thanks, Mo. That's such a healthy perspective. And I know you're probably not the only one here that felt that way of trying to break those barriers and get past those and to see the world. And the fact that you have a framework, I am just so curious of what that framework looks like. Maybe you could share that later. Thank you. Alexis, go ahead.
I can get off unmute. I'm Alexis, and I have a 3-year-old who has severe allergies to peanuts, shellfish, and then wheat, oats, barley, rice, eggs, rye, any wheat product. So it's really hard dining out in the US. So it was very interesting learning how to feed my child in Europe. So interested in learning from everyone and being able to share some of the tips and tricks that worked for us while we were there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody. So I'd love to get to know who's with us today in terms of our audience. So I do have a couple of poll questions that I'm going to survey everyone out there just to get a lay of the land, what we're all dealing with, some of our initial thoughts on this topic. So I'll launch a couple questions here, and you should see a poll coming up on your screen. I think this is a two-part question. One, have you traveled to Europe before? And two, what are the dietary restrictions that you manage?
Where's the poll? I don't see the poll.
If you're on a phone, it might not show up.
Okay, I'll put it in the text.
And sometimes
chat.
if you are on a phone, if you swipe over, maybe it shows up on the second screen.
It showed up for the iPhone.
Okay, thank you for that. Good to know. All right, we'll end this in 5 seconds and we'll share those results. All right, and as you can see, wow, the majority have been to Europe before. So I'm sure that there's a lot of you out there that have some great tips to share in this call as well, and we'd love to hear from you. 42% have not. And wow, we have quite a heavy food allergy crowd here today, which is fantastic. Some with celiac disease, that's great too. Again, we're going to keep it pretty general, so there's something for everybody, whether you're dealing with intolerance, allergy, or celiac. And I will put out one more, let's do two more questions before we get into the meat and potatoes of everything today. This next question, what country would you most like to visit? And I did not list all 27 EU countries here, but these are some of the most popular ones based on the languages that we have ordered from Equal Eats. All right, let's see. And what a neat split. So number 1 is France. All right, followed by Spain, Italy, Greece. Oh, England is up there as well, and then Greece. Excellent. And yeah, maybe there's some other ones out there too. My personal dream is to go to Estonia. There's something about this country I'd really love to see. All right, and we'll do one more question because this is really going to lead into what we're going to be talking about today. And that is general concerns. And I know we're all here not because we're 100% confident about traveling to Europe. There's probably something that that's on the back of our mind. So what is your biggest concern about traveling to Europe? Okay, 5 more seconds. All right, I'll share these results too. And this is really fascinating because it's a real divide. Again, so biggest concerns about traveling to Europe. The first one is access to emergency services. And I think that's a great topic for us to talk about today. Unfamiliar food, language barriers, and then just overall preparation for that trip. So perhaps, since this is the biggest question of all, our biggest concern, I'm curious with our panel, has anybody ever had to access emergency services in any way while you were in Europe? And if not, did you have a plan in case you had to?
We didn't have to utilize any emergency services, but we did look into it to see like where our health insurance, you know, I contacted the health insurance company to say, okay, we're going to these places. Where would you recommend we go if need be? So we did have a list, but we didn't have to utilize it.
Similar situation. I called my insurance and we tried to stay. We actually chose our hotel that was relatively close to a hospital, or and then I went to the doctor right before and made sure I had extra EpiPen. So we actually traveled with 6, just in case. I always keep 2, but we took extra just in case. And then I wasn't able to travel with Benadryl because of the size. They actually threw it away. So once we got there, we purchased Benadryl and had that on hand as well.
Similar answer for me. I have actually not had to call emergency services either, but something that I do, and I actually done a lot of traveling solo, which is like very nice that I haven't had to access emergency services, but whether I'm traveling solo or with friends or like a loved one, we always Google, what is the emergency services number for that country, have it saved in our phone as like emergency -country or something that it's just easy to remember. You put it in like your favorites or something. I'm really big on Google Maps. So when I'm planning, I try and stay in parts of the city where it's very easy to see or to locate the nearest hospital. I also Google just so I'm familiar with like how late things are open. Like living in New York, I think I'm pretty spoiled. Like things are open 24/7, but in a lot of other places they're not. So knowing what's available to us at what hours is also helpful. And then I also I always try and learn the words for like emergency or doctor if I'm going to a country where I don't speak English, like either using like just going to like a bookstore and looking at like English to whatever language dictionary, looking up the word for like emergency or ambulance or hospital, just so I can communicate that if I don't already know how to speak that language, because I do know a little bit of French, but most of the other countries I've been to, I don't necessarily know the languages. So that is also made me feel really at ease, knowing I could quickly be like hospital or doctor, because people are going to understand you need help. So those are some things that I do to feel prepared.
Wow, great tip sheet there. Love it, especially knowing the emergency numbers when you go abroad, because 911 is just such a staple in North America. But I was just talking with someone who operates the police line here in Slovenia, and that is 113. But if you're having a medical emergency, it's 112. And just knowing these numbers where you go is really important. And UK, I believe it's 999, Australia 000. So it's just taking a step back and thinking, that worst case scenario, and just having a plan gives you some more peace of mind. So please, anybody who has questions, start typing them in. We will have time to, or if you just want to raise your hand, you can just get unmuted and ask your question that way. But I guess to give some perspective of where our panel has gone, perhaps you could list off some of the countries you've been to, and if you could highlight 1 or 2 based on what was an easier trip and what was a challenging trip for your allergens, your restrictions, that would be great. So Alexis, do you want to start off?
Sure. So over this past Christmas break, we went to London and Paris. London, obviously was easier. Native language is English, so it's very easy to communicate. There is an Instagram page that I follow that shared a lot of restaurants that pointed out their, like on their menu, specific things that were the ingredients that the food contained. So that was very easy. We went to Disney while we were in Paris. We've been to 4 Disney parks so far. So I kind of know which restaurants that we can dine in and which we can't. So that was easy. Outside of that, Paris was kind of hard for us. We went on the busiest days. I did as much research as possible, but when we got to Paris, it was actually New Year's Eve. So some of the restaurants that I had already done my research on closed early. So we kind of had to backtrack and figure out, you know, what is our next plan. So I would say that was kind of like that poor planning on my behalf, not knowing, you know, their hours and that they would close on New Year's Eve. So luckily, wherever we travel, I always have some type of snacks and some type of bean that we can, you know, heat up or have someone heat up if we are dining out and there aren't any accommodations for my daughter. But I would say London was by far the easiest to venture to with her.
So you have follow-up questions as you speak. What Instagram page helped you? There's some interest in that, Alexis.
I will look it up and I'll put it in the chat.
Awesome, thank you. And then one more follow-up here. How allergy aware did you feel London was?
So compared to, so I was sharing earlier, some of the ingredients for products that my daughter is able to eat in the US changed once we got to the UK. And what I loved was on the back of the boxes, when you go to look up the ingredients, any allergen is pointed out. It's either bold or italicized or both. So I really appreciated that. I feel like London was really aware. I feel like it's an allergy friendly country. There were a lot of restaurants to choose from. There were a lot of options when I did go grocery shopping for my daughter. So I would say it's they're allergy aware.
Great, thanks for sharing that. And especially that story of New Year's Eve. You don't really think of those special cases of things being not according to plan. All right, Mo, do you want to go next in terms of where you've been and good experiences overall or challenging?
Okay, so I had to pull up a Google map because I've been to many countries. It's been a blessing. I've been to Iceland, Ireland, all over the UK, Norway, Sweden, Spain, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Monaco, Austria, Czechia, and Croatia. I think I got all of them. So I've been to many of them. I would say because there's like a high level of English there, and that makes me feel really confident in communicating. I think Iceland, I feel like everyone spoke English, was very well aware of allergies. And also the UK and Ireland felt like, because I know the EU has like allergy labeling laws, and like I feel like most menus had like please alert of allergens, and like they would have them marked. Like in the US, like I said, you'll often see please alert us of any allergens. Not a lot of menus won't have that, but but like in Ireland and the UK in particular, I remember seeing a lot of menus actually had like top allergens like marked on the menu, and I immediately was like, oh, this is very helpful. And I usually do a lot of research before I go. I think Google Maps has been so instrumental in planning travel, like because you can often find the restaurant's menu, quickly look at the restaurant's website, quickly look at the menu, assess the menu in terms of like, okay, like are a lot of my allergens present? Like what am I comfortable with? And so I would say overall, I think Ireland in particular, I had a really good experience where I went to a very small pub in the countryside and I alerted them of my allergies. And after I put in my order, I actually had a group of the staff come out and ask me questions about food allergies. They were like, so what happens if you eat this? Or what do we need to know? Or what has your experience been like? And then at the end, they were like, so how do you like Ireland? I just felt like they were so friendly about it. They really wanted to support me and like make sure I could eat something. And I would say in most of the countries I've been to, that has been the prevailing attitude. They want to be able to have you have a good time and enjoy their food. And I think the biggest stressor is like people, or the worst experiences have not really been, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it, but I feel like it's like a lack of like awareness and like a lack of education about it. Like I'm not quite sure. I think in France, I had some problems where people didn't quite understand, or they didn't want to like modify a dish. But also I remember going to France, that was a long time ago. It's been about a decade. I remember thinking, I'm here at a busy time. There are a lot of other people here. I'm trying to ask a lot of questions and they're busy. So I'd say that was my most negative experience. And I will say that there have been times where I think people just kind of forget about the allergy, and like for example, like at bars, they'll bring out like a bowl of peanuts, and my friends have always been like, nope, no peanuts for a table, please take them back. I've got some very supportive friends, but I think it's like small little, just like people are on autopilot when they're doing their job. And so people have always been like, oh, I'm so sorry you did say that, I will go wash my hands, or they'll be very accommodating in that way. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Mo. You've been to so many countries. You're a wealth of knowledge that I'm sure there's going to be some very specific questions for you today. Let's talk Croatia. Let's talk. Awesome. I see that there's lots of questions coming in. So here's what I'd love to do. Number one, I want to hear Jenny's answer to this question, and then we'll get a lot more into answers in terms of chat. I see there's hands up, so we'll get into some unmuting at that point. But if you have an answer to someone in the chat, I know we have some experts that are just attending today, so feel free to just chat amongst each other if you feel like you can help out on a question from your own experience. But Jenny, lastly, where have you been? What's been great? What's been challenging in Europe?
So I did quite a bit of traveling pre-celiac diagnosis. Things probably would have been a lot better had I known that I had celiac disease and I wasn't questioning why I was getting sick after everything I ate. But the two places that we've visited have been London and Italy. Both were amazing. I have no complaints about either location. London was my first international experience post-diagnosis, and their labeling laws over there are just incredible. And I really wish this country would get on track with what the rest of the world is doing when it comes to these situations. But they label everything. Their menus, every waiter asked us right up front, do you have any allergies? They were well versed in both, celiac disease and these random little like oral allergies that my husband has to deal with. Very accommodating, especially when it came to his like onion and garlic intolerances. It's not that he can't eat them, but for him to not feel after, he tries to avoid them. So they were really accommodating for us. And Italy was just amazing. We went to Milan, Florence, Pisa, and Rome. So we didn't have a bad meal at all when we were there. Even our airline food, surprisingly, wasn't bad. And they did a really good job with the gluten-free for that. So that was surprising, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, to be able to go to Italy and eat pizza as if it's like real pizza was like the best thing in the world. We are Italian. So it was just really good to be able to like have all those foods that we like grew up with, and actually be able to enjoy them. Like we had the best fried calamari that either of us have ever had in our lives. And I would go back to Rome just for that fried calamari, to be honest. Like it was that good. But everybody was great. Very well versed. Italy has the AIC, it's their Association for Celiac Disease. They have an app over there that you can do like a trial period, which is 2 weeks, and you pay $3 for it. Highly recommend doing that if you're going to go to Italy with celiac disease, because it lists all of their certified restaurants in each area. and they have to get recertified every year. So it's a very strict certification. Many of the places have like their own prep areas as well. So they kind of have like the 2 kitchens. And if it's AIC certified, most places that we've been to, everything on the menu could be made gluten-free or was already gluten-free. Like a lot of the desserts were just, they already made them gluten-free. So you could get gluten-free tiramisu just about anywhere, which is my favorite dessert in the world. And yeah, I mean, we didn't run into any issues, which was just mind-blowing and exciting, like as a chef, and just a lover of food, to be able to like not worry at either in London or any of the cities in Italy. Like we had a pretty incredible experience, and I can't wait to go back. I mean, I want to explore more places. Greece is on my list for sure. And the Netherlands. I'd like to go back there and actually, you know, experience it and not be sick. So, yeah.
Oh, thanks so much, Jenny. My wife has celiac disease, and we went to Florence last year, and it was paradise for her. The amount of gluten-free pizza and pasta that she was able to eat and find very accessible.
What was her favorite restaurant that you went to there? Do you remember?
I can't remember the name of it. It was just in the middle of Tuscany, like winding roads, and it was like a mirage of a restaurant. And like that, this is it. And the wine was fantastic. The food was great, and we all ate safely.
Yeah, like when we were in Rome, we did an olive tour. So we got to go visit some like local olive groves and all this other stuff. And the host even prepared like gluten-free meal for us. So I mean, even just not even at a restaurant, but it was literally in somebody's home, and they prepared like gluten-free for us. It was unbelievable.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you everybody for sharing your travels. Definitely got me thinking about my next trip all of a sudden. But let's get into some questions here. There's a lot going on in the chat. Pardis, do you want to ask your question? I see you have your hand up. Do you want me to either read it, or do you want to, I can unmute you if you'd like, and you can just ask it.
Yeah, I could ask her. This is Nick, Paradis's husband, so we're both here.
Hey, Nick.
Hi. So we live in Phoenix, Arizona, and we have a 15-year-old who has many severe food allergies. And I've heard everyone else talk about eating at restaurants and talking to the chefs and stuff, but we feel like we can't even do that. He has so many food allergies, you know, all the nuts, dairy, soy, eggs, fish, shellfish. It's so many of them. We're lucky there's one place in the Phoenix area that we can go to that's absent all his allergies in the restaurant. So we do go there, but it's the only place on the planet that we know of that we can do that. So so my question is, do people who travel overseas, are there people who, you know, buy the raw foods and get the rice milk, and can you trust the labels? So if we want to, you know, go somewhere and get the raw food and do our own cooking, how safe is that? Have people done that?
So while I was in London, both London and Paris, I bought raw food and prepared it myself. I actually traveled with my own pots and pans, just because I was unsure if I'd be able to access that, even as silly as that sounds, but I am just more prepared than anything. And I would say the food, I felt reading the ingredients, I know that like canned beans in the US, most of them have a lot of preservatives, a lot of stuff in them. When I was in London, it was just beans and water, like beans soaked in water in a can. So I felt that it was much safer. I didn't have to worry about if there was any seasonings or if there were anything that could essentially, you know, have my daughter have a reaction to it. So I feel like for me, it's safer. My child sounds like similar allergies as yours, and there are a handful. We live in Texas, so there's even Mexican restaurants. I feel like that's the safest for us because we can just order beans. I feel like even then there are many restaurants that we can dine out with her, because she's vegan, so most of the beans are made prepared with pork or just something that she can't have. So I'm with you on the that it's like 1 or 2 restaurants that you can dine out. But we just prepare everything from scratch. That's how I feel safest. I feel like a lot of people in the restaurant industry, when you try to communicate them to either the waiter or the waitress, they kind of look at you and they're like, I don't know, because it doesn't affect the masses. And you don't want to rely on that. So you kind of talk to the chef. And even then, I know that they give you that blanket statement that they can't promise that there's, no cross-contamination. So I always have a backup for her just in case.
I've also prepared food for myself when traveling in the past. And I think that the food labels or the allergen labeling is a lot better in parts of Europe. If I remember correctly, because I haven't really been anywhere since the pandemic hit in 2020. But I remember a lot of things were bolded and just outlined better. I remember I felt like I didn't have to hunt as much for products. And I think because I follow some allergy influencers in the UK and like in other places in Europe, and I feel like they've done a good job of sharing their process for like contacting companies. I feel like it seems like their experience has been better than it has in the US. I've definitely emailed companies to figure out, like production line questions and like just to figure out like how safe something is for me. And sometimes I don't even get a response. But I feel like it just depends on the product. But I would say I feel like there are a lot of options for people with allergies and like figuring out what's going on in terms of like where it was produced and the ingredients and things like that. I think it will probably vary by country, and obviously translation is a concern, but if you learn the words for the allergens and like do a little bit of research identifying like maybe things are called something else there, doing a lot of extra research could be helpful in that case.
All right, thanks everybody. I know some people are just messaging in terms of they have to hop off, which is totally fine. We're probably going to go on for a full hour here and no more, but if you do have to go, that's fine. We are recording this. So we're going to be posting this on our blog, equaleats.com, and then our blog is right there. We're going to have promoting it on our Instagram. So if you're following us, you're going to be in the know. You'll get to see this after the fact, but we'll definitely have it pretty right there accessible for you. So we got another half an hour to cover a whole bunch more ground. So thanks for everybody for joining us today. All right, moving right through. We got a lot of questions here. This is fantastic. I'm going to start right from the very beginning here. So I added a link in there, and thank you very much for your question. I think it was Nick. That's a really handy guide, this link I posted, in terms of the top 14 allergens that are labeled for in the EU and how they're treated differently in terms of putting them in bold and the restaurant legislation surrounding them. So that's very helpful. But overall, yeah, to find food in grocery stores, very doable, very easy to navigate for the most part. Overall, so we had one question from Roberta Zimmerman about what are some of the tips to ensure safe eating at restaurants when traveling to foreign countries? What are some of your gold standard tips? You're at a restaurant, there might be a foreign language, different food, different menu items. What are some of your steps to navigate that?
I do a lot of research. Even though I have a culinary background and I understand ingredients, even those from like other countries, I do a ridiculous amount of research before we go anywhere. I will even contact the restaurants if they have any questions, and to ensure the cross-contamination issues are minimized. And honestly, just talking to them when you're there, like, don't be afraid to ask questions. You're your own advocate. You have to be, or you're the advocate for your child. And if you are the advocate for your child, you want them to see that it's okay to be that advocate, right? And even when we went to Italy, and people told me all the time, like, oh, you're not going to need this, but the translation cards from Equal Eats, like, those are your best friend because you can take them anywhere. And I pulled them out several times when we were in Italy and didn't really need them because everybody was so well versed. Like I said, even when we went to that couple's house after the tour, like, they were so well versed in it. It was just, mind-blowing to see that level of care. But you really you have to be able to communicate and be your own advocate.
Speaking up, great tips. Mo, Alexis, anything to add about when you dine out in foreign countries?
I think research is key, and having backup options is also key, because sometimes I will look online and be like, oh, this menu looks great. Like, is nut, like the nuts on the menu, I'm like, I think this is doable for me. And then I'll show up and the menu has changed. So maintaining some flexibility and being like, okay, well, where's my backup option in the area? I always have a Google map for every trip with like things marked, like here's where I'm staying, here's the food, here's the drinks, here's an activity. So I can quickly just be like, okay, where's the backup option? When I first went to Europe, or like on a long Europe trip, I had this card that I printed off the internet with my allergies for every country we went to. And I remember being like, I don't even know what this says. Equal Eats didn't exist yet. And I remember being like, what am I doing? Is this going to work? But I remember every single one of those cards was so beat up by the end of my trip because people took my allergies seriously, because clearly it communicated something to them that I could not eat those foods, but every meal was fine. I think everyone took me seriously. And I think having the Equal Eats cards, I haven't gotten to use them yet because I only ordered them last year. And again, I haven't really been anywhere outside the US, but I've used them in the US. But having them, I think I'm just gonna feel so much better because I know they're sturdier, like I think people will take them more seriously. And then other tips for eating out that I follow, I try and go at off hours. So like right when the restaurant first opens or going later, just because I prefer to talk with the staff when it's quieter or when things are a little bit slower and it's not as hectic. I think it just stresses me out less, and I don't feel as bad about taking up a little bit extra of their time when I'm communicating my allergies, because I just want to make sure they fully understand, and like also they can hear me because restaurants get busy. So keeping that in mind has been helpful. So those are some things that I have done.
Excellent. And some
I would agree
just
agree
to
with
say,
both.
and we have one note in the comments here. I love it that someone recommends apps as well. Spoken, Find Me Gluten-free just gives you a starting point on places where our community has had success before. So there's some really fantastic apps out there that gives you a starting point. You still need to have the conversation. You still need to have the dialogue and be an advocate for yourself, but it definitely helps opening up some doors. Sorry, go ahead, Alexis.
I was just gonna say, yeah, the same thing. If there is an option for you to make a reservation, I always add in the note, whatever the allergies are, so that they know ahead of time. And then we communicate that once we arrive, because things change, or maybe someone didn't see it, but it's, as much as you can communicate it as early or as soon as you possibly can. I always try to do that also.
Christina, your comment just put a big smile on my face. We ended up using our Equal Eats cards more than our credit cards. That's a positive, I guess. Hopefully you didn't blow the bank, but hopefully you kept safe. Excellent. There's quite a few questions about airlines and airline food that I would love to prioritize here. So questions surrounding how much food can you bring on an airline? Can you bring food on an airline? How do you ensure other people are not eating what you're allergic to around you? Overall food, airplane tips. What do you have on that subject? Jenny, do you want to go first on that one? You just got off an airplane not too long ago.
Again, communication is key. So when you're booking your flights and everything, they give you the option when it comes to allergies. You click it, but then you don't really know. So you highly recommend following up. Don't ever feel like you're annoying somebody. If you feel like if you're getting that impression, that's on them. Your main goal is to keep yourself and your family safe. So ask all the questions that you need to ask, and ask them as many times as you need to ask them. And for us, we always bring food through security because it's often hard to find gluten-free at airports, unless I want to eat a bag of potato chips, if I'm lucky, and a bottle of water. So we bring like gluten-free Jersey Mike's or like a Chipotle bowl or something along those lines, so we can eat right before we get on the plane, just in case we don't feel comfortable eating what they provide us. Like I said, when we went to London and when we went to and from Italy, we didn't have any problems with the airline food. But again, I also called them multiple times and asked all of the questions that I felt I needed to ask until I got the answers that I felt comfortable with. But yeah, I mean, you can bring food on. We always pack food in our carry-ons and our suitcases, like little snacks, bars, whatever they may be. Because sometimes you don't know, or you're getting hungry halfway through the flight, or, you land and you're a little overwhelmed and you don't know where to eat first, even though you have your list of all the places and where they are. Sometimes you just want to eat a bar and be able to go from there. So we always have stuff in our carry-ons and our checked luggage, and we bring food through security. Definitely do that now.
Mo, Alexis?
Yeah, so same thing. We kind of had a couple hiccups traveling. So I did call 30 days before to let them know about all of the allergies. I know people are human. I know they, are trying to get to the next call. So I called multiple times. And then when we got on we pack our own food because there's no way to accommodate her allergies on the flight. So they did tell us that there would be shellfish and peanuts still served on the flight. Although they did make an announcement that, someone did have a shellfish and a peanut allergy. But we, when we got, to our seat and they provided us with a meal, it was pasta, which she can't have pasta. There was a dinner roll she couldn't have. The only thing that she could have, there was like a little side salad. So luckily we brought our own food. And initially they didn't want to reheat it for us, but sometimes you just can't take no for an answer. There's no way that they can't accommodate someone on a 9-10 hour flight. So you're just polite. You understand that it's not something that they have to accommodate often, but that they should accommodate you. So we were able to have her food reheated. And then coming back home, another hiccup. I tried to communicate the allergies again, calling and sending, talking to someone via chat. A lot of times the allergies just weren't, they didn't have anything on record. That was the consensus, traveling to and from London and Paris. So I always bring my own food. I try to keep things on ice. I try to carry heat packs if there's someone that says no, we don't have any way of heating or warming food, just to try and do my best with that. And we travel with everything. I mean, beans, container to put water or beverages in once we get to the airport. Because like you said, there are a lot of restaurants that they don't accommodate you. They fry their seafood in the same grease that they fry their fries in. And that's usually our solution, French fries. Chick-fil-A is our go-to for French fries. And a lot of times we're traveling on Sundays, Chick-fil-A is closed. So just have to kind of think ahead and prepare yourself. And if they throw it away or they tell you that they have to get rid of it or for whatever reason, just making sure you have extra, because some things that we were able to get into London with, when we got to Paris, they threw it away. So for what rhyme or reason, I'm not sure, but I always have a bag full of snacks and goodies that she can have.
And there was a question in there about, will customs and immigration let everything through? And sometimes no. Sometimes, that you're not supposed to be bringing meats and vegetables and fresh food across borders, even Canada to the US, you're not allowed. So, you don't want to be breaking any laws. You don't want to be getting in trouble. So, non-perishable items, things that, you can do your research on what's allowed, what's not allowed. Do not bring, a full steak across the border, or, a fruit basket, and you should be okay. But, it's their job to enforce the health and safety of the country, which sometimes is above our dietary needs. So having that research ahead of time is really helpful to make sure that you're not breaking those rules. Beef jerky, again, it's meat. I can't say definitively for every country, but that's a good question, Amy. And you'd have to check whether that constitutes as okay or not for where you're going. My hunch would be no.
I was going to say, I actually almost got in trouble for bringing a banana I bought in the airport. I think it was into Australia. Maybe they have very strict laws because they're an island. But they were like, you need to eat that or you're going to get fined. So I was going to add, I actually don't eat any airline foods. I think I gave up a long time ago. I realized I did not trust them, especially with the nuts being passed out and everything. And it just made me very anxious. And so what I do is I try and pack like only things that I'm going to consume on the plane, like if it's beef jerky or things like that. I try and consume things that like I don't think I can bring into the country, like on the plane. And then I have just snack bars that like shouldn't be a problem, that are from like free from facilities, and I know I can definitely eat. So always having like those backup foods, but I gave up on eating on airplanes a long time ago. And I'd actually bring extra snacks because I can be around peanuts if someone else is eating them, but I will say it makes me very worried because people can be messy eaters. And I don't like the smell. It just makes my stomach turn. I'm just like, I don't like it. Not a favorite smell to be having when I'm trapped in a tube crossing the Atlantic Ocean. So I bring extras and I'll say, hey, I noticed you have nuts. Can I trade you for this? Or not trade them. I'm like, you keep that and save it for later. Can I give you this bar? I have some options or other snacks. I imagine you're going to be hungry. And I've actually never had anyone turn me down. People have been very kind because I think they also realize like, oh, if this girl has like an allergic reaction, it's going to be trouble for everybody else too. Like it's not going to be a fun time. But people are usually pretty kind about not eating those around me. And I feel like a lot of airlines have gotten better about nut allergies, but some of them have not. But again, unless it comes from like a top free facility or it's like something that I've prepared and I know the ingredients are going in, I'm not eating it on the plane. And I actually try and avoid eating on planes anyways, just because I have this little voice in the back of my head that's like, but what if you're allergic to this new thing? And that's never happened. But I try and eat before I go to the airport to just get a hefty meal in. And then, I survive on my snacks and whatever I have until I'm safely in the next country.
Great tips. And some other overall tips for flying with food allergies that I've come across. One is there's a lot of opportunities to pre-board now, especially for flights within the US with the Americans with Disabilities Act, that you have that opportunity with food allergies. So to go on early, request that to actually wipe down the surfaces, the chair, the tray table. There was a study done that found the dirtiest places on an airplane. And number one, even more dirty than a toilet seat on an airplane, is the tray table. So remember that and just make sure to clean it, have napkins, whatever it is, if you are going to eat, to make sure that you have some type of buffer there. For myself and traveling, this is one of the biggest treats I give myself. If I'm going on an airplane, I'm definitely not eating airline food, but I am making the most incredible sandwiches. I'm buying the treats that I always say no to. I'm like, no, I don't need that junk. No, if I'm flying, I get the junk and I want to treat myself. So I'm not even tempted. I'm not thinking about the other food that's on there, but I'm fine for, 2 full days worth of snacks. And that helps me cope through all of that. Absolutely. And there was one time, I loved your offer to swap that you mentioned, Mo. I did buy a guy a drink once on an airplane who pulled out a bag of peanuts and said, hey man, I will buy you a beer, whatever you want. If you could just keep those out of sight. And he was like, absolutely, and had a great conversation about food allergies. So understanding. He was an oil and gas guy working on rigs in Norway. And the people that you maybe not expecting to be so accommodating, he was just fantastic about it. And we had a good time talking about it. All right, we have 9 minutes left. So we've covered a lot of ground here, which is fantastic. It's last call for any other questions. Put them in the chat. I think we've covered a lot. I am going to put up another poll question, and I'm not sure where Alexis has gone. Maybe it was a bad connection, but I don't see she's back. I've got one final question.
I'm back.
Oh, there you are. Oh, sorry, I'll pin you right to the top here. Great. I'm going to do one more poll question because this is new for us. This is our very first Equal Eats Roundtable, where we have our amazing ambassadors for our brand coming together, sharing their knowledge. And before people start leaving, I do want to ask this question. Would you want us to do more of this? We're considering doing this on a monthly basis, different topics. Is this helpful? All right, let's see. That's a yes. Okay, good to know. Well, fantastic. That really says a lot about our panel today, how much value they're sharing. So thank you for all of them for being with us. And then one last question for the audience before we get into one last panel question. And that is, what are the topics that you're most interested in learning more about that you would want us to cover in future roundtables or resources? All right, 5 more seconds. All right, let's share. This is really, wow, quite a range. So travel tips for specific countries, tips on planning, flying, international food labeling guidelines. Ooh, that's a fun one. Packing tips, stories from seasoned travelers. Oh, that would just be fun. We just have story time going through everything this one time. And excellent. Thanks, everybody. That's really helpful advice for us. So it's other questions that came in. Turnaround time for Equal Eats cards, 1 week. OIT or other tolerance induction programs. Okay, that's something that we could look into. Again, no doctors in house, so we would need to partner up with some experts on something like that. But our last question, and I really want to leave with this one, it's not necessarily related to dietary restrictions, but it's why we travel. And I think this is a really important question to close off on, because it's a lot of work, right? Getting all of this knowledge and prep and planning and packing a cooler full of food to go on an airplane and thinking through all of these steps. And why is it worth it? What is it about travel that makes all of this worth it to you? Why is this world so beautiful and wonderful to make all of this worth it? So go ahead. I'd love to hear your responses to this, of why travel is so amazing to make it worth all the effort. What do you love most about it? Jenny, do you want to lead off on that one?
Sure. For me, it's food. You learn so much about a place and the culture through food. And to be able to experience that, it's a feeling that I can't really explain. Like I said, before being diagnosed with celiac disease, I got to travel quite a bit. I lived in China for a little bit as well. But I'm for us, I should say for us, not just me. We like to go and kind of not do 100% the tourist things, because we really want to experience the place for what it is. So you will probably never see us take a trip to some resort somewhere where you don't ever leave that property or anything along those lines. Because if I'm going to plan a trip and I'm going to put that effort in to make sure I'm safe, I want to make sure I'm experiencing that place for what that place is. And a big part of that is through food. So yeah, for me, I want to just eat my way around the world.
I love it.
Gluten-free, of course, but
I love it. It's about the food, and it's from your background of being a chef and a dietitian. That's so fantastic to hear. And others that want to share in the chat why travel's so amazing for you, would love to hear it too. Thanks, Pardis, for sharing. And Lindsay, that's great. Mo, go ahead. What is it about travel for you?
I think it's about connecting with other people and just realizing that there's so many people in this world going about their everyday lives. And you think that you're so different, and then you go there and you realize we're all just really very similar. Like our day-to-day may look a little bit different, but we're all here to enjoy ourselves with family and friends, and experience art and culture and music. And I just think that's really enjoyable. So yeah.
Nice. Alexis?
I'd agree. Food, and identifying and recognizing other cultures. So when we were in London, we did a pottery class. We went to a couple of different shows and it was amazing. I want to just, share the world with her. So I think just kind of opening my eyes and hers to new experiences, new cultures, different climates, all of that. So I would say that that's huge for me.
Nice. And there's people asking for if you have blogs or if you want to leave your Instagram accounts, anyone on our panel, a blog link, anything where people can learn more about you and your info, please feel free to put in the chat for everybody. I'll end off with, for me, I love travel because, I don't know, it makes me feel alive. It gives me this sense of adventure that I used to feel, a lot more when I was 19, but now it's, you go around the world and it's just, it opens your mind, it opens your eyes, and you feel so vibrant, so amazing when you connect with people and cultures and learn more than you thought was ever out there. So it definitely is, it keeps you growing, keeps you young, which is wonderful. Okay, well, I'm going to just share a final slide here and we will wrap it up. I really appreciate having so many people join the call today. We have some resources that I did send throughout the chat. We will be posting this on our blog, our website, where I'll put some direct links to some of these resources for the EU. This one's really helpful, just how labeling is done in the EU. On equaleats.com, we have a travel checklist that we designed just based on time of what you should be thinking about when you're booking a trip 1 month before, 1 week to go, on the day. So it just gives you a little helpful checklist to go through things to make sure you've covered your bases. Otherwise, appreciate everyone coming today. Appreciate your feedback based on wanting more of these roundtables. I think it's a go for next month and thereafter. So thanks for that. And then huge thank you for our panel. Alexis, Mo, Jenny, thank you so much for sparing an hour of your busy Sunday away from family and friends to be with us and share all of your knowledge and tips to provide a little bit more confidence and inspiration to our community. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you everyone again for attending, and until next time, safe travels. Bye.